What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
All right, I think we are all set. What is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode number 584 of Underground Sports Philadelphia, presented by the City of Vineland. It's KB and Matt coming at you from Underground Studios. Got a lot to talk about on this episode, from the Birds, the Phillies, the Sixers being one of the best teams in the NBA right now, playing against the Celtics tonight, big one on deck. The Flyers doing the most hilarious Flyers bit of all time. And then obviously the Union finally back at it for the MLS Cup playoffs. Hopefully take care of business in Game 2 to advance and get rid of this best-of-3 nonsense sooner rather than later. But before we get into everything, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at UndergroundPHI on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI, Twitch.tv/UndergroundSportsPHI if you want to watch the show live with Matt and myself every Wednesday night. Be sure to follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star rating and review. And subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. That's where you get full video episodes of this show twice a week. You get full video episodes of every podcast on our network. Live streams. We have a big live stream coming up next Tuesday for the Netflix Cup, a collaboration between Get in the Hole and our F1 podcast, and a little bit of streamer season sprinkled in. So big one next Tuesday. You'll get that on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. And, of course, this show is presented by the City of Vineland, and the City of Vineland Municipal Calendar features city-organized, city-sponsored, and city-affiliated events that are of public interest. The calendar, which is accessible at vinelandcity.org, is a good way for residents and visitors to build awareness, remain engaged with city government, and participate in local events. You can also follow the City of Vineland on social media via their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube pages. Through these tools, you can stay connected to the community and get important announcements about programs and services offered by the city. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. And big thank you to Security 21 Security Systems and Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated for their continued support of this podcast. Matt, what is going on, brother?
I am living the dream.
We have lots of stuff on the docket tonight. We'll start with the Eagles. It's brought to you by our pals over at PHI Apparel Company, our official merch partners. If you want to stand out in the crowd at the tailgates, at the Link, the Wells Fargo Center, at the bar, or just hanging out at home, get the best merch available from PHI Apparel Company, because there's no doubt in our minds you'll stand out in the crowd. You can get your Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, Sixers, Union, and, of course, Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast franchise merch. Go to phiapparel.co, use code underground for 10% off any and all merch orders. And then when you get your merch, be sure to tag us, tweet at us, and let us know where you're rocking your merch from. That's phiapparel.co, code underground for 10% off your order. Eagles going into the bye week 8-1, flying high, and I think the scariest part about it is they still haven't looked like they've put a full 60-minute game together.
Yeah. I thought they were gonna blow it.
Yeah.
Me and my wife were watching the game, and she we saw the conversion, and they get the Cowboys get the ball back with 40-something seconds. All right, game is not wrapped up, but we kind of there's a little bit of relaxation. You kind of lose your focus a little bit, and so she got up and started doing other stuff, and then she sat back down, and it was right after that. Defensive pass interference, and then I think it was Bradbury was holding his leg, and I was this is going south very quickly.
Which somehow he came back into the game after that.
Yeah, that did not look good, because it looked like his leg slipped the wrong way and his knee kind of buckled. But they get down to the a first and goal situation like that, they're gonna blow this in extraordinary fashion, and then the Cowboys found a way to make a bunch of mistakes, and ultimately the Eagles were cleansed of any potential sin. But Yeah, it's weird. I think this is not unique to the Eagles, though. I don't think there's a single team in the NFL that feels like a juggernaut, that feels unstoppable. I think last year at this time, you would have said the Eagles and Chiefs really looked far and above like the favorites, and that ultimately ended up being the Super Bowl matchup. But I think in general, there's plenty to nitpick about all the teams. It's the worst the Chiefs have looked offensively with Patrick Mahomes. Part of that has been a flu game followed by a flight to Germany, and I don't think any of the European games have been great in terms of like execution. Like they've been a little like on the more low scoring side. All of the NFL has been a little more low scoring this year, though. Who else? The Ravens might look like the best team, but
they look good.
The Ravens also have some of the dumbest losses. They already have 2 this year that are just like so frustrating that they should have won. And, I think there is still, similar to Jalen Hurts going to the playoffs last year, there's a lingering question, I think, with Lamar Jackson. And it like is, I don't necessarily believe this, but I think people will ask this question when it comes playoff time. Like, is Lamar Jackson a type of quarterback that can win in the playoffs? I don't know. Like that really, he hasn't done it so far, but Bills are struggling. Obviously a lot of injuries. Bengals are turning a corner, but they're still like a team that feels like a strained Joe Burrow calf away, which that injury just seems to linger. We've talked about the 49ers issues. The Cowboys have issues. The Lions? Other than them being the Lions and they have Jared Goff, I don't know what else. Everywhere. My point is every team, every contender right now, I think has something you can say about them. So I think the Eagles have been pretty good, and they've beaten good teams at this point, and I think what the Eagles do, which I'll say like no other team has this, is one, they have a built-in advantage that I don't think anyone can stop the Eagles on the ground. Like it is just like it really is, I think, one of the true things in the NFL right now that nobody can figure out, because you can't, because it's not just good scheme, it's great talent and like unique talent and ability that allows them, every drive starts with a 1st and 9 or a 1st and 8 for them, because if it's 4th and 1, they can convert that. If it's 4th and 2, I think they could convert with the brotherly shove 4th and 4. I really like. He's getting like 5 or 6 yards on that play now. Like it's not, and the crazy thing is everyone knows it's coming, and you
still can't stop.
It is an unstoppable. It is the sky hook of the NFL.
Yes.
Like it doesn't matter. Like cool, it's the Nowitzki like fadeaway. Cool, try and stop it. You can't. So I think they have that in their favor, and I think that's maybe a little overlooked. I think the only area you could say with this Eagles team that has been exploitable, we saw it against Dallas, is that secondary. And you're seeing like, you had Bradbury and Slay out at various points in that game, and that was the concern coming into the year, is like guys at their age typically just don't put together a full season. And so much of the Eagles' success last year was based on health. You had 22 starters make it to the Super Bowl. That really is like, even for lucky health years, that's a pretty extreme outlier. So, that's always going to be a worry. That's a worry for every team. But I do think the Eagles defensively, specifically, passing, I think, is that going to trouble them in the NFC all that much? But it could be something that I think if you get to the Super Bowl, where you're going to likely face one of Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, maybe Josh Allen, maybe Tua, maybe Lamar. Like those are likely the. I would be shocked actually if it was anyone other than those 5 names. I don't know who else. I don't know if CJ Stroud is going to
secretly Trevor Lawrence.
I don't think they have.
I don't think they have the push to get past those other 5 teams you mentioned, but they're one of those teams that's like, if they catch lightning in a bottle at the right time, could.
It's weird because I think the Eagles and Jaguars are kind of having a similar season in that Jaguars are 6-2. You would not think that in the way that people talk about them. And they've also, like similar to the Ravens, had some pretty like 2 of their losses. They should have beat the Chiefs, but the Chiefs, we found out too, have a great defense, which I think is something to consider.
Weird.
But I think like the Jaguars, I feel like I watch them and like Trevor Lawrence should have like 80 touchdowns, and he just doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, and it feels like at some point they're gonna like find a rhythm. But I personally just not sure that I see the Jaguars making it out of the AFC. But yeah, I think that is where, like, if you're just thinking long term about this team, that would be a concern for me. In the same way there was a concern last year, because this Eagles team couldn't stop high quality quarterbacks. In the playoffs, that's all you're going to see anymore. In the NFC, not as much. We know that. Like no disrespect, obviously, but Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in the NFC, and it's really not close. Like, it's Dak, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, Matthew Stafford, if healthy. Like, and that's not really a thing. Like, it's really it's really fallen off in the NFC. And so, like, two of the best quarterbacks in the NFC.
Yeah, no, especially like Kirk Cousins is out.
Yeah, right. Like, there's really, I don't know, maybe Josh Dobbs is actually the second best at this point. I'm willing to buy into that. But
I mean, that whole series of events that he went through on the sideline, teaching his cadence to his offensive line is insane.
I've never seen anything like that in my life. It has to be so embarrassing as a Falcons player and as a Falcons fan. That would be something that would make me not tune in for the rest of the day. Like, that would be my Joker moment, I think, if I was a Falcons fan.
How old do you think Josh Dobbs is?
I think he's 26.
He's 28.
Yeah.
Everyone I've asked that question to thought Josh Dobbs has been in the league for like 15 years.
No, yeah, he's like on the younger side. It's weird. Yeah, it's strange, and it just makes you like wonder too, like how many. Not that like Josh Dobbs is like amazing, right? But like for being a backup, like he's good, and he's gonna have a backup job as long as he wants in the NFL.
Easily.
Like this has been a great year for him financially. I think it does make you wonder, like how many of these guys though there are that like even Brock Purdy, right? If you just give them a shot and they're in the right system, like maybe things are well for them, and they can at least be like a mid-level starter for you, which is not a bad place to be. But yeah. I just think in the NFC, like, I don't know. I really think the Eagles are still going to be a team that, especially now with the way that they've stacked wins, there's a lot of ground for, the 49ers and Cowboys to make up, which I don't know that they can necessarily. The Eagles have a tough schedule coming up, but still, like, if they go 1-3, they're going to, simple math here, but the Cowboys and 49ers are going to go perfect to make up ground.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know.
I saw a tweet saying the Eagles could go 5-3 in their next 8, and then the last 3 games of the season, if they won them, like Dallas wouldn't even be able to win the division.
Right, like they've put themselves in such a good position that they're the favorite now to have the 1 seed, and that comes with a big advantage of the bye and home field advantage throughout. So that could be a massive turn in their favor. I think that was very important. Like, I can't imagine losing out in the division, having to be a 5 seed, and knowing you're going to have to win 3 games on the road to get to. Like, that's just hard. It's a hard thing to do. So, the Eagles, listen, has it been perfect this year? No, but I think people got spoiled by last year too, where Jalen Hurts got to rest every fourth quarter, and like it was every game was 30-3 at halftime, and everyone just got to kind of hang out. It was never going to be that way. Like and
yet their offensive efficiency is up from last year in a lot of categories.
And that's the thing too, is I think this year, not even just for the Eagles, I want to stress that too, is like it's just, I think around the NFL people felt like the Bills are just as good of an offense as they were last year. It does not feel that way by
or
every
even
metric.
Look that way sometimes.
Right, but like it's I think there's a little bit of deception, and I think too, like we have a tendency to like really look back on past season, and you're not living in the moment as much, and you're not remembering all like the weird plays and the weird like Tuesdays where you were arguing about this and that. Like, you just remember like the big broad highlights and the broad strokes of the season, which were overwhelmingly positive, obviously, for the Eagles. But like every season's gonna have its issues. I can remember people arguing about stuff last year, like for sure. I can definitely remember there being debates about Devontae Smith being better than AJ Brown and that he should get, or why weren't we involving Goedert more? We need a better running back. Like, there's plenty of debates like that.
And even with some of the clunker weeks he's had, whether it's by just game flow or whatever it may be, DeAndre Swift is still 3rd in the league in rushing right now.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. And we saw Rashad Penny. He's alive. He's out of witness protection, which is good. But
hopefully Boston Scott is okay as well.
Yeah.
I know he was out with personal issues and it was kind of like hush-hush on that. So, also, the Eagles-Cowboys game this past Sunday was the most viewed piece of television content since last year's Super Bowl.
I'm not surprised. I mean, it's two very, like,
Lose the
whatever you
needle.
want to say about the Cowboys, like, the America's team thing is kind of a joke now, but they are an insanely popular team.
And Eagles-Cowboys, no matter how good or how bad either team is, people tune in.
And, Philadelphia, obviously a huge market as well. Like, it's, and also, too, it was really the only watchable game, I think, in that second half window. And usually, like, whatever premier matchup I think is in that, like, 425, 430 slot is usually going to draw a lot of eyes.
And it was getting, like, NFC Game of the Year tags.
And it was a great game, too.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, I think it's a game that delivers on a lot. You know, there's some, like, rivalries, like, that the games themselves are just not that great. Like, there's definitely, like, a rivalry there, but it doesn't translate into, like, an enjoyable one for a fan experience. I do feel like Cowboys-Eagles does usually deliver.
And on top of that, this week named a finalist for Sexiest Man Alive, Jason Kelce.
You know, listen, everyone has their tastes.
I said this is the closest I will come to even being nominated for this award, so I take it as a dub.
He's handsome. He's a handsome man.
Oh, 100%. And I think, how mad do you think Travis was thinking that he was going to be nominated first?
Travis dating Taylor Swift, so I think, you
Fair.
can't be too greedy. I think you gotta mind your space here. Like, like you're doing pretty well for yourself. You don't need everything.
Yes.
You don't need it all.
Also, Jason Kelce confirmed on New Heights that the clip that Warren Sharp posted of him that looked like he was yelling in the Cowboys player's face, he was actually just laughing maniacally in his face.
It's even better.
Which is hilarious. Eagles have a bye, so we have a stress-free Sunday upcoming. And I think it comes at the perfect time, not only for Jalen Hurts, but it means Dallas Goedert's only potentially going to miss 3 games with the fractured forearm.
Yeah, it's a tough stretch of games to potentially miss him for. I think would not be the ideal stretch to lose him, but you saw last year when he missed time, Devontae Smith really stepped up. That's where he had like his second half of the season where he looked really, really good. And I mean, he's always been good, but like clearly handled that extra load very well. And we know that A.J. Brown has been the second best wide receiver in football this year. So, it's not a great situation, but I think it doesn't change too much about how I feel about the Eagles. But yeah, it does potentially. I think for Jalen Hurts too. I think that knee's a little more injured than they're letting on. And I think anytime a player's playing with a knee brace, that it's not a good sign. And I was really concerned when he went down during the game.
Were you shocked that didn't get a flag?
Okay, so like the refereeing has been bizarre this season because I don't know if you saw the Commander's sack that got turned into a like. What is a defender supposed to do here? And I think my number one gripe is pass interference, because the rule is that the defender has to be making an attempt to play the ball. I have to like turn the head.
Mm-hmm.
I see plenty of times where they'll go and the play runs, and you'll see the wide receiver asking for a call, and then they'll go do the slow-mo, and the cornerback, the safety, whoever is all over him, no head turned, a referee right there, and no call. It's like, I think consistency is really where we want to be at. And with plays like that, plays like with that Washington and Patriots sack that got called roughing the passer, I just think like in real speed, yeah, like it's a violent game. I don't know. And honestly, I think he did everything. He barely, honestly, outside of like getting him to the ground, I don't think for a second actually even like landed on him, like rolled off of him. It was a pretty like graceful sack, all things considered. I don't know. I just think, it's been inconsistent a lot this year, which is frustrating. The Chiefs Tyreek Hill fumble, I missed on that. I don't know. Not just because I have Tyreek Hill in fantasy, and that was a play I really needed. But I had a vested emotional interest in that game. But honestly, I don't know. I think sometimes I see these things and I'm like, I must be crazy. I'm not sure I understand it, but I think that's just sports in general. You're always gonna be frustrated at an official in some way. I think officials are like coordinators. Mm-hmm. You kind of don't want people to know your name. Like there's some like Ed Hockley, right? If you know the name, it's like, yeah, because they're just like, well known for like being good,
a character.
or a character. Generally speaking, though, I think you kind of want it's like a good offensive line. Mm-hmm. Like it's kind of better that people don't know your name. Like outside of Zach Martin,
Yeah.
Can you name other like great? Obviously, the Eagles is going to be
Eagles
easy,
are-
but you know, like I would like in the NFL at large, name 5 great offensive linemen.
Right.
It's very hard to do, and that's because listen, you only know them. You only know Mekhi Becton because he's been bad.
You only know Trent Williams because he loves to throw hands.
Right, and Trent Williams is like also a generational like, left tackle. You know, like you literally have to be the best offensive lineman for like the last 15 years. I think for most NFL fans to know your name.
I do think it's interesting, you know, with you brought up Tyreek Hill, obviously, and then A.J. Brown. Do you think this is the first year we could see multiple wide receivers nominated for the MVP alongside their quarterbacks? Because Tua and Jalen have been great. Obviously, they're going to throw Patrick Mahomes in there because that's just what they do with the MVP award. But it does feel like those two have hit an echelon above everyone else at different playmaking positions to where it feels like they both should be nominated at least.
I think it'll never not go to a quarterback now. I just think that's the way. I mean, we've seen it this year with quarterback play, right? Like when Joe Burrow is going to work his way in this MVP conversation now too, because who knew not
Lamar.
playing on a Lamar's 100% in it. I think Lamar's third favorite right now. It's tough when Cooper Kupp didn't win it for winning the Triple Crown.
That was crazy.
You know, like I just like what more can you do? Like Tyreek Hill, like he might break 2,000 yards. Cool. You know, like it's. I just think it's very hard for a non-quarterback to win. None of the quarterbacks have been like. No one's having an outstanding. Even Lamar is not having like. If you look at his numbers, it's not been like wow. Like the team is good and he's playing well, but it's been a lot of rushing touchdowns. It's been a lot of like Gus Edwards is like 80 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks. You know, but I think there's something to be said too of like being willing as a quarterback that can run, like giving up, you know, part of that too, like for team success, and that's why like he should be in the MVP conversation. But it hasn't been. It's not having like a statistically great season. No quarterback really is. I wouldn't say is having like wow. Everyone pay attention to this. Like it's even Jalen Hurts has had like his issues, right? He's had a few more turnovers this year than you expect from him. Hasn't been as dynamic rushing as we're used to. But yeah, I just think it'll never go to a non-quarterback. Right now, if I was like betting, I think just because the odds are good, I think I would go Burrow because I think if they end up finishing like 11-6 after the season, after the start that they had, and that could be, you know, like if maybe they steal the division from the Ravens, right? If the Ravens have a tougher second half, they still have another game to play, I believe. Maybe something like that, right? Like, but yeah, I think it's always going to go to a quarterback.
Looking right now at a certain sports book, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, and Patrick Mahomes all have the same best odds at plus 350. Tua's at plus 650. Joe Burrow's at plus 700. Christian McCaffrey's at plus 1,400. Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence at plus 2,000. This one makes no sense. Brock Purdy at plus 2,500.
I mean, when the 49ers were 5-0, and you were looking at them and looking at that team and thinking, if this team wins like 14 games, you know, like a lot of times too, like the MVP award is just kind of goes to, okay, who's the quarterback on the best team in the NFL? You know, like it's just, you know, if Brock Purdy ended up with like 32 passing touchdowns, like 8 interceptions, you know, I don't know. It's tough. But
Tyreek Hill's at plus 4,000 with Jared Goff. Dak Prescott's at plus 5,000, and A.J. Brown's at plus 7,500.
I think Offensive Player of the Year is a more interesting race because you have McCaffrey, Tyreek, and A.J. Brown as all really great like players and options. I think that would almost be the more interesting discussion. I think.
Yeah, right now,
you're having 3
Player of the Year.
great seasons.
It's Tyreek Hill at plus 125, Christian McCaffrey at plus 125, A.J. Brown at plus 550, and then Jamar Chase is 4th at plus 2,200, followed by Lamar Jackson at plus 3,000.
I could see A.J. Brown getting that because if the Eagles end up as the 1 seed, I think they'll want to, like, I'm just not sure I see Jalen winning MVP this year. He could, for sure, but it doesn't feel like last year where it's like, wow, you know, people, like, he took a big jump, especially for a lot of, like, national people, and I think there's a recognition of he's amazing. And probably if he doesn't get that shoulder injury, he probably does win MVP, but I think that, like, they'll want to give the Eagles something. You know, like, I think there's, like, I don't know that, you know, Sirianni will win Coach of the Year, right? Like, I think that'll probably end up going to someone else, but I think there's always kind of an impetus to be like, listen, we can't give, you know, the best team in the NFL. They can't give them no award here, So, and I love the Dolphins. I love Tyreek Hill, but I think I'm not going to call them frauds, but they're clearly a team that struggle against high-level opposition. And I think if that means they end up maybe not as like the 1 seed in the AFC, and maybe some of the Tyreek love like cools off a little bit because they haven't been able to like win in a big game, maybe you give a little love to A.J. Brown and the fact that he had this historic streak already this year. Like, he's been such a dominant, like game-changing. People are talking about how it's the best trade of like this decade already, And then you have McCaffrey too, so who could be.
Feels good to have placed a futures MVP bet on October 30th on A.J. Brown. Looking at the odds now to when I placed them at plus 25,000. Feels good.
Always worth a shot. But
Feels good for the dart throw.
A.J. Brown's been great. I have him in fantasy, which just really doubles my joy. I got to tell you, I'm usually not a fan of drafting from your favorite teams because, like, you get to double your joy. You also get to double your misery.
Yep.
But it has been fun. He's been unbelievable. He's really, like, unlocked, I think, something a little extra special this year in the way that he's played.
There have been, this century, 4 non-quarterbacks to win the MVP.
I think none in the last like 13 or 14 years, right? Like,
the year 2000 was Marshall Faulk, who won unanimously. 2005 was Sean Alexander. 2006 was LaDainian Tomlinson. And then the last one to do it was in 2012. It was Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, which, I mean, fair enough. But yeah, like I just don't think that and it's true, like the quarterback position is the most, like, we've seen that so much this season and through all of these NFL seasons. Like, the quarterback position is the most important one.
And then it went Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Cam Newton, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
I wonder if the NFL will also, not to the exaggerated extent, will get like the NBA, though, with the voter fatigue thing.
Oh, like with Mahomes?
Yeah.
Mahomes, now, like, I think for Mahomes to win another one, it's going to have to be, like, he's going to have to touch, like, 50 touchdowns again. Like, he's going to have a pretty impressive counting season. I think last year was the last time that holy shit. I'm sorry, we had the Union game on, and I just watched Andre Blake I think they were offsides. He didn't know this, but he made an unbelievable save. I think last year was the last year Mahomes gets it for just being, like, Patrick Mahomes on the Chiefs. You had a great season. Here you go. I think, because you're right, there is a voter fatigue thing. Like, LeBron should have 2 or 3 more MVPs. Michael Jordan should have had 2 or 3. It happens with great, like, dominant players. You could probably say, like, Brady should have won a few more. Like, it is what it is. So, I think he's gonna have to do something special. And there's gonna have to be, like, no one really, like. It was close last year with Jalen, and again, I think if he doesn't injure his shoulder, probably ends up going to Hurts. It's going to be like, because every year in the NFL too, you have a breakout team, and we know that a lot of those awards are a little more narrative driven. Not as much as the NBA MVP is narrative driven, but if there's that, like, kind of young, sexy team with the quarterback who returned a corner this year is having a career year, like, I think voters will a lot of times defer to them.
Yeah, so the Eagles on a bye, which is nice. We get to relax and just veg out in front of Red Zone for 7 hours of commercial-free football.
What a guy.
Shout out Scott Hansen.
It's election season. It got me thinking he should run for office, and I think I would vote for him because the competency that he displays every Sunday to speak clearly, effectively for 7 straight hours, and, like, jump around, like, he's truly one of the best Americans. I mean, honestly, like, that is. First of all, commentating a game, not easy. I cannot imagine being in a control room where you're jumping around, especially in, like, the early game window when you have, like, 8 or 9 games going, and having to know immediately, like, and he has producers that help him out. Right. But, like, it's just, man, it's honestly really, really impressive. Like, every time I watch it, I'm like, damn, this dude is, like, on a bean. Like, it is unbelievable.
Scott Hansen, I think you just worked your way into dream guest for this podcast.
Oh, and too, like, he seems like such a. First of all, he seems like he really cares about the craft.
Yes.
Like, he takes his job seriously, which is great. Like, I don't think you get that job without taking it seriously, and being, like, very earnest. He seems like an awesome guy.
He seems so, like, personable too.
Yeah, like, again, I think you have to be if you're gonna talk for 7 hours. But he's really become. He's like our generation's Madden, honestly. Like, Madden was like kind of had a second life as a commentator, and people knew him because he was like, he
voice of the video game.
Yeah, like we knew it, and we knew him too because he would go on these tangents, and he would he was always funny for the highlighter,
Yes.
on the screen, right? Like you always knew it was gonna be a trip when he got a hold of that thing, and he's kind of like the TikTok ADHD generation where we can't focus on a game anymore. We have to watch Red Zone. He is our John Madden now. It's like he has just
the turducken is to John Madden as the witching hour.
Yes, absolutely. He's got a catchphrase. Like,
yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Shout out Scott Hansen. Open invite to come on the show.
And
whenever.
that format too is like now copied by like every other sport has tried something like that.
They just tried it with hockey this year.
Yeah, soccer does it a lot, and it's okay. It's mixed success, but yeah, it's I know the NBA has tried it.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing quite like it.
Nothing like Red Zone. Let's shift gears from the gridiron to the off season for Major League Baseball. It's brought to you by our pals over at Kenwood Beer, the official beer partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's 4.1% ABV, just 120 calories, only 8 grams of carbs now with the new formula. You can go to kenwoodbeer.com, use the Kenny Finder, see who's got Kenwood beer on tap in the Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, and Maryland areas. Got to be 21 or older to do so. And, of course, please drink responsibly. Got some off-season award announcements, off-season rumor mill swirling, Matt. Last week, or Sunday, I should say, weird award announcement dump to do the Gold Gloves on a football Sunday, but Zach Wheeler walks away with a Gold Glove.
Did you expect anything else?
Well deserved.
From Major League Baseball.
Of course. Well deserved by Wheels. Bryson Stott gets snubbed, but in return, baby Stott was born on Sunday night, so that was pretty sweet for Bryson and Drew. But we also just got the 2023 All MLB team nominees. And nominated for the Phillies, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Kyle Schwarber, and Zach Wheeler.
Yeah, I think Zach definitely. Everyone else, I think you can make a case.
Mm-hmm.
JT, I think, has a strong case. Everyone else, Trey had a rough first half of the season, great second half. Bryce was out for a bit this season, but when he played, very good. It's Schwarber, all power. All gas, no brakes with him, but yeah, it's tough because we didn't have we had a good regular season, but it's obviously a lot of that is predicated on what we do in the playoffs, which it's a regular season award,
And speaking of, seems like Bryce Harper will be moving to first base full time. Dave Dombrowski spoke the GM meetings. He said the door is not completely closed on Rhys Hoskins, but it does feel like the Rhys Hoskins era is slowly but surely coming to an end.
It feels like we have a price in mind that is not in line with Rhys's price, and that sucks. But I don't think this is out of left field either. I think this was something that as soon as the injury happens, it immediately you're questioning about what happens at the end of the year with him, and I hope Bryce puts in some work defensively because didn't cost us really in the playoffs, but there's definitely a few moments where it's like, wow, this is a guy who's only played like 40 games here, but he gets a full season there, and that might improve things. But yeah, it's going to be sad if we lose Rhys. Obviously, he's someone that I think kind of became like the heart and soul of this team in a lot of ways, and I think still a little bit divisive with fans in terms of his impact and things like that. But I think, we appreciate what he's done. And too, there's a guy too that during the regular season could get hot and really carry this team when they were struggling for bats. And I hope that he gets a good contract. If it's here, that'd be great. But honestly, I hope he gets paid because he deserves to get paid. And it's gonna be a little sad if he's not a Philly anymore. But that's unfortunately what it is,
And it's one of those things too that what he and his wife Jamie have done off the field too has been unreal for the city of Philadelphia, and like they made their home here. And I think, they're a Philly sports power couple that no matter where they go, I think will have the undivided support, kind of like not to the degree, I would say, of like Zach and Julie Ertz.
I was just going to say, like,
But
in a nice way, like
an adjacent
a
dynamic,
generic brand Ertz.
in a way. So, Rhys is the
you
best.
You can't discount that either, too, though. Like, what having like good character people around.
Yes.
You're like, at the end of the day, like we lose sight of this so much, but this is a job, and think of like people that you would want to work with. Like, and that's ultimately like that's what this is. Like, and that's why I always think that like being a good head coach or a manager, whatever the title is about being like a good boss. Like you have to be able to like just think of the best boss you've had, like, and think of like the best coaches. A lot of them are good because they have good interpersonal skills. They know how to talk to people. They know how to communicate. Like, I don't know. Like it's not so far removed from what it is to just work at any other job. So you can't discount what having someone that's like a good person and brings a lot of, again, like good character, like really good relationships with everyone. Like that's been a big part with Schwarber too, is that Schwarber apparently is like just great camaraderie with everyone, great chemistry with people, like very like warm, especially to new people. Like that matters. Like it really, it does. Ask teams that have spent a lot of money but struggle because guys don't fit well. Like that's why a lot of sports now like focus so much on interviews, right? And getting to know that, like, are they going to fit with our culture? Are they going to fit with how, we have our clubhouse, our locker room, whatever. Like it's important.
And I think, say what you want about Jake Arrieta and his time here, but he did say when he was co-hosting Starting Nine, he said one of the best things the Phillies did when they went all in on like the model of just, spending and buying players to build the team. One of the best things they did was sign Kyle Schwarber because he is the ultimate like clubhouse guy, and you could tell like the culture flipped once you started seeing Kyle Schwarber kind of in the limelight of this Phillies team, and you can tell that like he is like the unofficial captain of the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, that stuff, it matters. It 100% matters. That kind of thing. Look at the NFL, right? Like at some of these teams that, look at the Raiders. Josh McDaniels, they hated this guy, and guess what? If you hate your boss, you dread going to work. You're not going to put forward your best ever. It's no different for an athlete. You're not going to like really. And when that person is gone, it's
they smoke victory cigars in a Week 9 win.
A cloud has literally been lifted. And it's the same thing too, where you see like with I'll give a lot of credit to the Vikings, right? Like Kirk Cousins goes down with injury. There's all the reason in this world that this team could just fold and be like, it's over. The season is done. They have the most resilient game I've ever seen. They're like coaching their ass off, playing their ass off, and they win. And it's like, yeah, because there's a good culture there. Clearly, like you know now that like like last year was rough for them, but you understand that is a team that is clearly like well organized and has a good culture around it. So it matters. That stuff, it really does.
And not only does it matter in baseball, it seems to be mattering in the NBA, Matt, because our Philadelphia 76ers have have found a way to be the number 2 seed early on here in this NBA season, and are one Giannis travel away from being undefeated, and seems to be that coaching matters.
Yeah, it turns out having a coach that stresses off-ball movement could be a good thing. Could be a good thing, too, that Embiid's having to run and move a little bit. Maybe he'll be in shape.
Shut up, Pat Bev.
Yeah, it's been a good start to the season. I think we're on a high right now that I think we're going to fall from a little bit. Could be after tonight if we lose to the Celtics. But I just think in general, we talked about how I think this is the lowest expectations this team is coming into a season with. And, everything kind of feels like you're just playing with house money a little bit, and that you've had a great start to the season. Maxey looks good. Embiid's playing at an even better level than he did last year when he wins an MVP. Like, he's had an unbelievable night against the Wizards, which it always seems to be the Wizards with him. Like, I feel like he definitely, which is fine. I'm cool on just destroying them. But, yeah, it's been good, and I think this is what we kind of expected, though, with Nick Nurse, that you were going to have a good regular season, and this is where, keeping Harden and seeing what would have happened with Nick Nurse for a regular season, this team could have ended up Now, obviously, playoffs is still the big question with this
Mhm.
team, but it does matter regular season. If you end up as like a 2 seed, and what that could do for you and how that could kind of change your outlook as you get into the playoffs. But I think they kind of have what it takes, and they have decent depth. Like it's not
I think that's the key too. It's finally just depth that is playable depth.
right. And I mean, listen, if you can get to like mid-high 50 win team, like that's an advantage in of itself. So I think I'm not getting reeled back in because I know where this ends, but I can see why people are, and I can see why, like I'll watch this team, I'll root for them, but
Mhm.
I still am.
They do feel way more likable than they have over the past 4 years.
I don't know. It doesn't. I'll be honest. It doesn't feel that much different to me. I wouldn't say that they're more likable because
They may just be hotter because Kelly Oubre.
that is definitely part of it. We get it. Damn, you got pretty eyes. We know. The Kelly Oubre experience is gonna hit a rough patch at some point too. We're in a honeymoon phase, and I think we need to recognize that. And this team is gonna challenge us mentally and physically, probably. But when have they not?
Good to see Nick Batum didn't retire either.
Yeah. And he came and had a great debut. He had a better
Great
debut than Harden did, so that's nice. I think we already won the trade, but I just think, listen, it isn't a abusive relationship where the Sixers have hurt me so many times, and they're trying to convince me now this time's gonna be different, that they changed, they got their shit together now, whatever. No, I'm not buying it. I'm just not.
It is. I think tonight is the first, real test of the season outside of the opener against the Bucks. But even then, like you were right there with them until the very end, and now you get the Celtics. You're at home, which the Sixers have played extremely well at home this year too, and you get a real taste at what a team that's kind of gone pound for pound with you to start the season against other opponents, obviously, but the Celtics have had a really good start to the season, and it's a team that you still can't get over the hump in the playoffs again.
Yeah, they've held your leash for the last 5 years.
So, see what they can do with the home crowd behind them here in this early going. The in-season tournament is underway that, for some reason, a lot of people didn't realize was starting.
I will say the NBA, I think, didn't explain it very well. I think it's still kind of like the format's a little clunky, but I think there wasn't a ton of promotion, I don't think, either.
Because I saw so many people saying if this was happening around Christmas, like I'd be in. I'm like, guys, the reason it's happening now is so it can help you get hyped for Christmas, because people don't watch the NBA when the season starts. They wait until December.
What you just said is why they're making the tournament, because no one is invested in the NBA on November 8th. Because everyone knows that the NBA is like, no one really focuses, like generally speaking, no one is locked in on the NBA till Christmas. And the whole point is that it's a reward for teams that start off the season well, because we know that there are teams like that, and two, that to make these early season games matter a little bit more. So yeah, not surprised that people maybe missed the point a little bit. I like the in-season tournament. I know it's gotten some like weird hate. I think it's fun. I think it's a cool way to introduce something new to the league,
and it doesn't take away from your regular schedule, because it's your regular schedule games.
Yeah,
you're just giving them a boost in meaning to a degree, and it's not like you're adding more games to the schedule unless you make it to the championship. It's one extra game, and it's it's just a new thing. And I think if you're a fan of soccer, like, you get it because it's very Champions League adjacent. What did you make of the courts?
That for me has got to change. I like the idea. I like having like a different court. And soccer too, like you have patches on the side of the jersey too that change for like depending on what, if you're in the league or if you're in whatever cup you're playing in, which is like a cool change. I know for some of the league cups in England, they actually, so like in England, because they're animals, they can't be you can have away fans mixed with home fans. So there's like away sections. They actually expand the away sections for the Cup game, and it creates like a little heavier of an atmosphere because typically away fans who are really passionate and they're following teams all around the country. So like it's usually a little bit livelier of an atmosphere. So I like the idea of, physically changing this, because I think too for the players, it kind of like, there's something I think psychological about like, oh, this is different, this is a different. I think you could tone it back a little. I think there's a middle ground. Some of them honestly look like a 2K court that you would make at 11 years old. It was like the brightest of bright colors that are honestly just
the usage of the Seinfeld "what's going on in there" meme was hilarious.
That was a good one. The Heat court was disgusting. I hate everything about it. If I have to hear about Heat culture again, I'm gonna lose my mind.
I'm in the midst of trying to make this. I don't know how it hasn't been made already because I've seen so many edits of the Heat culture lane that is on their court. How nobody has done the Tom Brenneman, and there's a drive deep to left by Castellanos.
Wow. Yeah. Get on it now because someone's gonna beat you to that. But
I saw the Jersey Shore letter somebody wrote on it, which was good.
I think it's fun. I think it's I don't know, like I always think it's weird when people say that they want you want things to change, but you also don't. I don't know. Do you think like people were cool with the 3-point line? I wish people would go back because I've read some of the old like articles and like newspapers about the 3-point line. A like universally recognized good idea, completely part of our game now, and people thought that was like the end of basketball. I don't know, like change is good. I think it's fair to give feedback on stuff. Like I think the courts, again, I'm really stressing this. So you could tone it back a little bit. It's the first season of it. I think it's gonna be something that is gonna like. Okay, so say you're the Nuggets, right? You have the chance because you've started out the season so well. You have the chance to be NBA champions, and then whatever NBA Cup champions, and then NBA champions again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like do something like that could potentially never be done again. Like it's, I don't know. Like I think that means something too, and also too, like I think you're gonna introduce, I think like higher stakes games, even though they're regular season games in some ways, right? They're only gonna count as regular season, but like introducing that, like we talk all the time about what a great experience is for like young teams to get in the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's like a tangible way you can do that too, like and play these kind of. I think you can say that like as this tournament rolls on, the intensity is going to go up a little bit, and that's good. I think that's a good thing. I don't know. I think it's like that Biden meme. It's like it's good for the economy, hurts no one, benefits everyone. Honestly, like who is this hurting? That's what I want to know. Like it's I don't really see the negative outside of I don't like change. That's really
it's literally just your Tuesdays and Friday games now have enhanced implications.
And it's crazy too because the people, honestly, I'm not even trying to make it strong, but I think the people that would complain about this also complain about rest in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a legitimate way to try and tackle that issue because if you make more of the regular season games more meaningful, then you're less likely, and they've made changes now that for awards you have to have a certain amount. Like they're clearly trying to address some of these issues and concerns that people have had with the NBA regular season. And I just think, like, what do you want them to do? I don't know. What do you...
And, like, the groupings are fun, and, like, for the most part, it's against, some of your classic rivals. You introduce potential new rivalries. Like, the Sixers are probably in a group where, like, it's not exactly all rival-based, but there's, like, it's fun to add a team who has, over the past 5 years, been perennially in the playoffs playing against some of these other teams. But, like, you look at the East Group C bracket, like, that's a group of death. It's Celtics, Nets, Raptors, Bulls, Magic. You look at the East B brackets, Bucks, Knicks, Heat, Wizards, and Hornets. And then in the West, like, you have the Grizzlies, Suns, Lakers, Trailblazers, and Jazz. Like, there's some fun matchups in all of these. And then, like, the East A is the Sixers, the Cavs, the Hawks, the Pacers, and the Pistons. Like, those are legitimate competition games, especially, like, Sixers-Cavs. And if the, who knows, Donovan Mitchell may become a Sixer at some point.
Yeah, it's fun. I like it, and I wish people would stop being Grinches.
It literally adds one extra game, and that's the championship of
right.
the tournament. Everything else is just regular season games with enhanced meaning.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So we'll see how the Sixers end up doing against the Celtics. The Flyers, though, it's brought to you by our pals over at FOCO. Forever Collectibles. They've got the best collectibles, apparel, merchandise, all officially licensed from Major League Baseball, NHL, MLB, NFL, NBA, MLS. They also have some Premier League licenses as well, the WWE, 90s Nickelodeon, you name it, they've got it. Click the link in the description to check out everything they have to offer and upgrade your collectibles collections from our pals over at FOCO. If you want to get Eagles overalls for the Eagles season, they've got them. So shout out to FOCO. Matt, the Flyers had the opportunity to do two of the funniest things last night, and they did one of them as they lost to the Sharks 2-1, a team who had, in their previous two games, given up 10 goals each to their opponents.
It is funny. I think that is a really funny thing to have done. And here it is. Here's the slide.
It is the most Flyers thing, but it seems to be a trend with the Flyers over the past half decade where teams will be on these like historic losing streaks or like historic, goal surrendered streaks, and the Flyers come through and the teams get their act together and come to an end.
You score for a case of Tasty Cakes against the Flyers. That's what you do. We are a charity team. At least generous to others.
And I mean, it is one of those things where like you got to expect the unexpected with this Flyers team across the board. Like there's going to be some bright moments with some of the young players that are finally getting a chance, like Bobby Brink. I saw a report too that the Flyers are allegedly prepared to sign Owen Tippett to a long-term extension. And for anybody who may not know who that is, he's the quote-unquote like gem of the Claude Giroux trade. He's very good from everything I've been told and what I've seen in glimpses of him. So, I mean, I wouldn't be against it. And, like, that's what the Flyers are at right now. Like, they're trying to build that next nucleus of a young core. So, even if they lose, there's no reason to get mad about it because it's kind of expected this year. And they're not supposed to be a quote-unquote good team until the 2025-2026 season to begin with, because that's when a lot of the turnover and a lot of like the core building is supposed to kind of make its way forward, and that's when you can start kind of being very like calculated in criticism of the Flyers. Right now it's just, sit back, and if they win, great. If they don't, it's expected, and there's no reason to really get mad about it.
I think you should be expected. You should be hoping for them to lose, honestly. I think that's the best thing the Flyers could do is lose, but yeah, I agree.
So we'll see how they try to bounce back after an unfortunate loss to the San Jose Sharks. MLS Cup playoffs back underway, though, for the Union, as they are playing right now, 0-0.
It is beat Boston Wednesday.
Yes.
Yeah, big turnout for the Revolution game. There's a whole 27 people here, I think.
Very
That's
nice,
awesome.
very nice. Love that, we had to wait 2 weeks for this one. Suspension came down, though, from MLS, which was, I think, expected. Not the best vibes. We mentioned this when the playoffs started, around the Union when the playoffs started, but an expected suspension finally comes down, and just can't have that in any sport, in any environment, and it's good that the MLS stepped in and made it happen.
Yeah, it's weird too because it's only a 3-game suspension. There's a Red Bull player that suspended for 6 games. I don't know what goes into that decision. I don't even understand how that happens necessarily. I think it could potentially pose a tricky situation for the Union, right? If they advance and they go whatever. It sucks. Like we talked about it last week. Like people don't make this up. There can be cases of like someone misheard something.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've definitely seen that before, but no one's like making this up. And that was clearly borne out through the investigation. Really ends, I think, Kai Wagner's like tenure here on a sour note because I really don't know that we see, because realistically, you make it through New England. I don't know how much further this Union team goes. We weren't already like in love with this season, and like you said, the vibes are a little off. It would suck because he was someone that I think has obviously been great for us the last few seasons, and this is just I think for so much of this year, the fans were in support of him and wanting him to get paid and stay, and it's like there's really not a more negative way to kind of end your time here. And he had like a weird response too. Like, dude, just like
I didn't even see his response.
it was not great. It I don't want to say it shifted blame, but he said that like Wood said something about his family and it's not who he is. Like, it's not who I am. It's like, brother, just you said a racial slur. Like, I don't know. Like, there's really no place for that. Like, there's nothing someone could say to you that's your response. You know, ultimately, and so it's just really disappointing. And yeah, it just sucks because that's likely his last thing is as a Union player, and that's I think going to be, unfortunately, how he's going to be remembered. Because I think it sucks because he had a great career here, and again, like this year was, I think a lot of people like really ingratiated himself to a lot of people, and kind of voiced a lot of fan frustration about ownership with Union, about not paying players, and they need to invest more and things like that. And now it's like you kind of lose your place in a lot of people's hearts and minds. So it sucks, and I wish he didn't do it. And I like you said, there's no place for that, and even if we advance, I don't know how I'd feel about him playing in a game, honestly. I think that would just be a weird feeling.
Yeah, I saw friend of the program, Morgan Tenzis. She, phenomenal photographer, was a Union photographer for Brotherly Game for a long time. She's down in Florida now. She said, she said, if you say a racial slur anywhere, like, you shouldn't be allowed to play again.
Yeah, I mean, like, think about it in your, like, workplace. Like, you're fired. Like, on it, like, it's just, I know that, like, sports are a little different intentions on how I get it. And, like, listen, like, I've never played at a high level, but, like, I've never said a racial slur during a game. But I've said things that I would not say otherwise. I have. You know, like, and I think most people who have played a sport have, but there's always that line, and you know that that's the line, and you know not to cross that line. Because there have been millions of interactions on a field, wherever, that, again, people have said things that they probably wouldn't say in their normal everyday life, but it's so many of them never cross that line because we know that's beyond. I don't know. It's like I said, it would be a really strange experience if he is eligible to come back and the Union are still in the playoffs. How that's handled. The Union were pretty proactive, like before the ruling even came out, said he was going to travel to New England. So I guess he's. I don't know. I think no matter what, he was gone. And this, I think, just makes it. I think this makes it at least more tenable for the Union to be like, well, you know, we had this, you know, like it's, you know, I don't know now how many fans would even want him back because I just think it's just a disgusting thing to do to someone. That's it.
Yeah. Gazdag ringing the bell at the Sixers game as well.
Yeah, I don't know if that's bad luck for the Sixers or for the Union. I don't know how that works.
Great jacket, though.
Yeah.
Shout out Mitchell and Ness. Yeah, it was Gazdag, Carranza, and I forget who the third player was that was sitting courtside the other night for the Sixers game. But Union were in the house, and hopefully, you know, they get things done against New England here. Last bit of Union news, too, the Aronson brothers played against each other, which is pretty cool to see them back out on the same field once again.
Yeah, very cool stuff.
So make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. You can follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. Get your merch, phiapparel.co, code Underground, 10% off any and all orders. And, of course, this podcast presented by the City of Vineland. And whether you're a company looking to expand, relocate, or you're a new business startup, selecting the right location is critical to your success. Vineland, New Jersey offers both an affordable business location and an excellent quality of life. The city's economic development department is a one-stop source for moving your project through the development and approval process, and their goal is to make this process as smooth as possible and to provide the fastest turnaround times in the region. If you're considering potential locations for your operation, contact the Vineland Economic Development Team at 856-794-4100. That's 856-794-4100 Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. And big thank you to Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, for their continued support of this podcast. It's been episode number 584 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. For Matt, I'm KB. We're getting the heck up out of here, and we are signing off. Peace.